Hey y'all, it's Amy Shaw, the Soul Whisperer here. I'm a practicing shaman in the Austin, Texas area. I'm going to make two videos today. So the first one, I want to talk about being an urban shaman. A lot of times I hear that the shamanic path, whatever that actually means, entails being one with nature, being out in nature, building relationship with nature and that type of thing. And I know for people, modern people that live in suburban or urban environments, wherever that may be in the United States or in any, major developed country, there's going to be large cities, and certainly there's a density of the population that lives in these larger cities, the urban areas and in the outlying suburban areas. A lot of these areas get overtaken by the human doing, state parks, and sometimes these have pretty rigid rules about staying on trails or if you can and can't camp, and so we're increasingly becoming more and more limited in our access to nature, particularly if we're living in urban and suburban environments. And so if you see this light flashing, I don't know if it's going to pick it up on the camera, but I definitely have a spirit living here in this room, and the light flashes quite often when I am in here. So yeah, if you see a flickering, that's just that there's spirits here, and they like it when I talk about them. And when I start talking about spirit things and shamanic things, the light will really start to go crazy. So anyway, yeah, what I want to talk about today is that living in a suburban or urban environment and how difficult that can be to access nature and to feel connected with nature. I wanted to share, this is sort of like a little book review, which I don't typically do so much of that on my channel. This is kind of going to be a new thing, but I'm really excited about this book and I want to share about it. It is called All Creation Waits, the Advent Mystery. Today is December 22nd, so it's the day after the solstice. But we really are in that season, in this winter season, this hibernation season where everything slows down, people turn more inward, they're out less, they can't wait to get home, it's cold outside, it gets dark early and that type of thing. And so we're spending more time at home, and what that means is we're spending more time within ourselves, at least in the northern hemisphere on this planet. And so this is a book that I got for myself. I also bought it as a gift for somebody else, and it is about the Advent. So if you're not familiar with the Advent basically starts December 1st and it carries us through beyond Christmas. It's basically for the month of December, and it's a countdown, so there's a different reading each day. It pretty much culminates this particular book. I have another Advent book by Jan Richardson that I have been reading, and I love it, and it goes past Christmas. This particular book ends on Christmas Day, that being, the event that we're building up to, and it does talk about Jesus the Christ. So it is very Christian-based and very Christmas-based in that aspect, but that is really just a brief part of this book. Leading up to it, there's a reading every day, and every day is about a specific animal and how they prepare for winter. So here, Advent 23, so this would be my reading for tomorrow. It's talking about the northern cardinal. There will be, a story that the author is telling about being out in nature and encountering, and all of the stories, all of the animals, each animal that's chosen for each day, it tells the story from the aspect of how the animal has prepared and is enduring winter, which, in the animal kingdom out in the wild can be quite harsh. But these stories are just amazing, and I'm really loving this, and it's really what inspired me to want to make this video and talk about what it's like to live in an urban or suburban environment and how difficult it can be to connect to nature or get out in nature, especially during times now when weather is not as permitting and it's not easily accessible. A lot of, especially urban people, don't even own vehicles. They rely on public transportation, bus system, train systems, that type of thing. And maybe these places don't really go so much into natural environments. And even inner city parks, are going to have some obvious wildlife, trees and squirrels and things like this. It's not quite the same thing as really being out in the woods and encountering foxes and cardinals and this type of thing typically. So what is something that somebody that's living in an urban environment can do? Well, the reason I'm sharing this book in particular versus, there's a lot of other books, Animal Speaks, I think, is one of them. There's several actually, kind of shamanic books in the sense that they tell you, if you've encountered this type of animal or somehow you've dreamt about it or had some kind of experience with this particular animal, you can look it up and it'll tell you what that means for you. All of those books tend to be very translational in nature. In other words, they're going to tell you exactly what this means. It's like a dream dictionary, or, it's like a map legend. Oh, you saw a fox. You dreamt about a fox. Well, this means, abundance is coming to you into your life, or something like that, right? So they're very translational in that aspect. Personally, in my shamanic practice, I really discourage people from using and relying on those books because they actually disempower us. They tell us what something means, and they don't allow us to discover the meaning within ourselves or to build a personal relationship with that actual spirit. And so that spirit wants to teach us something, whether it's in the actual material in a corporal body here on this earth, and we're interacting with it literally in nature, whether we're dreaming about it, we're having some sort of vision about it, we're having an experience in shamanic consciousness, through journeying. However, we're having this experience with this particular animal. It is a unique spirit with a unique personality, and it wants to teach us directly. It doesn't want us to run to a book or some type of encyclopedia and read about, from this archetypal standpoint of, oh, you saw a fox and this is what this means. So I really discourage people from using those types of books for that reason. It disempowers you and it discourages you from leaning in and building a personal relationship with that spirit, or asking that spirit, why are you here and what do you want to teach me? What does this experience mean for me? What are the gifts that you're bringing to me, and how can I serve you? It discourages that. It puts it essentially puts a book between you and the spirit animal that you've experienced, and it puts you much more in your head. And then it sort of plants this seed then that causes you to think or believe that that's what that experience was about, and you might miss the whole thing of what it was really about. But this book in particular is different, and how it is different is because it's not translating anything for us. It's not telling us, oh, you see a fox, this is what it means. It's literally telling us, like the fox, a fox, her experience of a fox, the fox collectively in general, how they live, her experience in the wild, and observing directly the behavior. So for instance, this red fox, she's telling us how this being prepares for winter and endures winter. And so it's not really translating anything for us, and within reading this, we can relate to it as a human being to an animal species, on some level, not just in the natural physical aspect of our being, but in the emotional and spiritual aspects as well. I haven't personally gotten to this Advent 22. Today is the 22nd. I haven't actually read this one yet, so I'll just go ahead and read it now so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't want to hear it, fast forward, but otherwise bear with me. I'm really enjoying this book. So this is Advent 22, Red Fox. The longest night of the year retreats reluctantly. Slow to wake, morning seeps in, gray and grainy. Startling, then, the quick orange brush stroked against the snow at the field's edge, her signature curving into the thicket and gone. Finally, the fox will rest. It's likely she's been out since the sun set yesterday, 15 dark hours ago, hours keenly focused on quieting her hunger. The berries and autumn fruits she loves are gone. The beetles, other insects, and lizards perished or burrowed underground. Most birds far flown, and few creatures have died from exposure this early into winter, or she would feed her urgent body with their fallen ones. I turn my route toward her vanishing point. Intersecting her tracks, I follow and see them change. They fall closer together and pivot a quarter turn, then stop. For 6 feet or so the snow lies quiet, unbroken. Then a churned commotion of a hole, and 2 drops of blood. Minutes ago the fox was trotting westward across the field when tiny, rustling, shuffling, squeaking sounds rippled through the snow from as far away as a football field and into the soft receptacles of her ears. She stopped. She cocked her head side to side, right ear high, left ear high, measuring the split-second lag between the rustle squeak reaching one ear, then the other. Thus she estimated where under the white expanse its source stirred. But to stay alive, she needs precision. Once she'd taken the sound's measure, she crept ahead, ears alert, furred pillows of her paws falling with less than a whisper on the snow. Then still, listening, she turned, aiming her body of attention just east of true north. She saw north. It seems Earth's magnetic field creates a patch of shadow on her eye's retina to show her north. When she turned north, the shadow she saw went ahead of her, step by deliberate step. Homing in, she lined up the shadow, always the same, precise distance from her, with the shifting, under-snow sound. For a breath she crouched. Then she reared onto her hind legs, knees bent, launching up and out on a trajectory into which she had factored speed and direction of the invisible scurrying, depth and resistance of the snow cover. In mid-air she made minute corrections with the rudder of her tail. At the peak of a precisely ordered arc, she plunged. For a silent instant she seemed headless in the snow. Then she wiggled up out of the crater she'd made. Righted, she lifted her muzzle skyward and gulped. Though she listens intently to detect the distant wisp of a sound, though she trains on it the whole of her attention, allowing no distractions as she moves in with steps polished into silence, in winter these remarkable powers are insufficient. To complete them, to find the hidden nourishment, she must turn in the direction of the shadow. If she leaps without its reliable lead, she will come up empty 4 out of 5 times. Following it, she is fed. So that was the passage for today, and that was on Red Fox. And so you can see the stories in this book are really talking about a different level of the being. And I'm finding that it's really allowing me to connect almost as if I am there. I'm very fortunate that we moved into a property that backs up against an enormous green belt. And I have a very large backyard, and so, all around me, my whole vista is basically, and we actually do sit up on a hill, so my whole vista is basically, trees and wildlife, and I can see probably 20 or 30 miles into the horizon. So I'm very lucky that I get to be that close, that essentially I can walk out my backyard and be in nature. But by the same token, it's cold. It's 38 degrees today, and to go out into that environment, you have to have the proper clothing on, the proper shoes, and right now the snakes are pretty dormant. They're laying pretty still and quiet because of the cold, but they're still out there. And this is rattlesnake country. We had a huge, probably 4.5, 5-foot rattlesnake right at our fence line last Easter. So the snakes are here, and so there's always, these factors that we have to take into consideration when we go out. We just can't go traipsing out in nature. So although I'm very blessed that it's right around me, I'm surrounded by it. Cardinals come into my yard, I feed them. All sorts of birds and bats and all kinds of things, really cool insects, and I'm really lucky that I've seen all this in my own backyard. By the same token, I'm not really in depth in nature as I would like to be, and sometimes when we live in urban suburban environments and we're very busy and weather doesn't permit, it's just difficult, or we can't really get out. And so I'm always finding ways to strengthen that connection, even if it is through reading about it. It's not the ideal method, but definitely we can strengthen our connections through journeying to nature, spirits, and through reading books like this. So I just wanted to share this book, encourage you to consider looking into books like that, and if I could, maybe just discourage you a little bit from books like Animal Speaks, or books that are very translational, that are going to, put your relationship with the animal spirits on a certain level that's very detached, which doesn't allow you really to sufficiently develop the personal relationship or the inner wisdom and insight that can come from these very rich relationships with spirit. So I hope that that was helpful to you, and I hope that you guys have an absolutely wonderful holiday celebration, and that the winter is kind to you, that you can really take this time to introspect, do some, personal work, and come out enlightened, bringing that light with you into the world. So as always, thanks for watching. If you have questions or comments, you're free to leave them down below on the video, or get a hold of me through email, on Facebook Messenger, and all the other wonderful ways that I can be found. So have a great day.